War is over. The royal authority has been returned to Victoria. The evil Sorcas have been defeated by the good felines. Am I being a little dramatic? Yes, but it's my channel, so I can do what I want. Ending a grand overture is something of a finale to the Victoria crisis. Taking place 2 months after the end of the conflict, it sheds light on how the country is recovering following the Sorcas' occupation. For the most part, things are pretty good, considering that the place was blanketed in Originium. Thank you, Sorcas, very cool. It's in pretty good shape, but the painfully won peace is balanced on a knife's edge, and one woman is holding the strings together. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, even if that rusted piece of Victoria's past is nowhere near her. Victoria has survived its encounter with Primal Originium, and the rebuilding of Londinium is well underway. But of course, when it rains, it pours. Housing, medicine, military reforms, restoring infrastructure, creating a new parliament system, dealing with the Sorcas question. Londinium might have weathered the storm, but a new, far less punchable storm has appeared and it's bearing down on siege. Vina Victoria, the Speaker of Parliament, has fully stepped into her role as leader within Victoria. But before she became Speaker, she became the hero who liberated Londinium, leading the Exemplars and Victorian forces into the city itself, making sure she got the new fit for the final battle. She, alongside the last Steam Knight and the Exemplars, would take part in the final battle of the war, where Ned Salem, the Naxahar king, was struck down. From there she would enter the palace of Westerleigh, where she would remove the Sorcas banner that hung over Victoria itself, as well as confronting the shadow festering within Victoria. Although, I'll save that tidbit for the story summary. Recognizing the folly of becoming its next king, Vina has opted to become the voice of Londinium's people, the Speaker of Parliament. Wielding a newly reforged Size of Kings, she steps into a very different arena than the fires of war, although it is equally rife with danger, especially in this uncertain time. Although her fancy new sword will do little to help with the challenges she now faces. Now a decorated war hero, Vina is coming to terms with the reality behind being a politician. You can't exactly beat up issues of systemic failing. Well, I suppose you could technically beat up some of them, but that's how political suicide happens. Luckily for Vina, she is the will of the people behind her, and she's gonna need it cause not only is she faced with restoring Londinium to glory, she is to keep the vultures at bay. In today's episode of Why the Victorian Dukes Deserve Nothing, we got the Duke of Godding, the Earl of March, and of course, the Duke of Castor. Now, if you've been around for a while, you may be aware of the disdain I have for the Victorian Dukes. It's well founded. Unless they are the Duke of Windermere, I have very little time for them. Power-hungry nobles who do nothing but actively contribute to worsening the situation. From being perfectly content with simply starving the Sorcas out of a protracted siege, to using the Exemplars, predominantly civilian fighters, as their frontline force, to actively seeking to weaken the position of a rebuilding Londinium, not taking the new face of the Victorian political scene all that seriously. Although this, as with all things they would do, would bite them in the ass eventually. Unfortunately, they are pretty secure in their position within Victoria. For now anyway. Although, I would be more than happy to have Vina remove some of them from the equation. They are useful as long as someone who actually cares for the people they rule over can apply a guiding hand to their focus. I will say that the Earl of March is fine as fuck though. And finally, I want to cover some cool Sorcas facts. They lost the war. Rip bozos. Heading back to Casdell with the first Originium is of course a nice consolation prize, but still, the Sorcas lost quite a lot of the old guard that ruled over them. The Sanguinarch, the Damasdi cluster, Teresa, Nez Salam, possibly Teresis, I say while staring daggers at the people about to spoil CN content in the back, which inadvertently spoils that anyway. Casdell might be moving into a future where war is not an eventuality, but it certainly cost them dearly. Not that I imagine most of the people who gave their lives minded. Well, of the named characters at least, I am certain a lot of the nameless peons cursed their fate as they died. Unfortunately, the Sorcas are not free from racism just yet, as the opinions of Victorians is understandably quite soured. While hate crimes are not being carried out en masse just yet, discrimination against the Sorkas is rampant, and many of them are opting to leave before tensions completely boil over. These are not Sorkas from Kazdel either. Born and bred Victorians are abandoning their homes in fear of an attack, including the family of one young Victorian, who had his livelihood destroyed from marrying a Sorkas. I for one am rooting for random Victorian citizen number 743 to reunite with his Sorkas wife and child once again in the future. And with the scene of Victoria somewhat set, I'm going to take a moment to introduce you to the stars of the show. Really only one star, but I like another one, so I'm calling it stars. No, it won't take long. Most of the characters present in this event are returning characters. The only real exception to that rule are Bobbing and the NPCs that will definitely not be relevant later at all, but this ain't about them. This is about Vina and Milskar. Vina should require no introduction. If you need one, a lovely man uploaded a video about her, so you should check that out. This event takes us through the growing pains of Vina's time as speaker. Are those pains over? No, far from it from the looks of things, but she's up for the challenge. Being a ruler is lonely work though. Tying it back into my thesis on the burden of royalty put on her from my last video, it's kind of ruining her life. Vina is the mythical politician that actually cares about the people who got her into power. A concept far more fantastical than anything Arknights has given us in the time we've been reading it. Caring about others while actively running a country is hard though. You can't get personally invested into everything. Vina's desk is quite literally littered in paperwork and letters from people voicing their grievances. All while she has to balance the delicate house of cards that is the new Parliament of Londinium. And although she is doing her best, she is learning rapidly that you can't make everyone happy. Difficult decisions with no good answer are already presenting themselves before her, and her choices are slowly costing her the personal relationships around her. Not from a lack of care, but because there is only so much time in the day. Potentially, that issue goes away as the rebuilding of Londinium is completed, but a problem with running a country is that problems typically don't go away, they evolve. Luckily, she is going to have a lot of help, especially as she is someone evening out the cracks in society for her. Milskar, formerly known as Allerdale, is the last Steam Knight of Victoria. No, not really, but she does wield a weapon of one. She has settled into her life as a shadow of Vina's Parliament, one who helps in quotation marks those who fall through the cracks of the new government, mainly in the form of a black market and human trafficking, helping the infected get some medicine and smuggling Sorkas out of the city. Not out of the goodness of her heart though. She acts as a constant reminder of the failings of Vina's Parliament, ensuring that people get help, yes, but also ensuring that Vina never forgets that systemic issues exist. She'll keep Vina in power for as long as she can, and earn herself a nice execution along the way. But that is the price she is willing to pay to see Londinium return to its former glory, something that she is no longer worthy to enjoy, but desires for those around her. Still, she could probably go about it without assaulting innocent civilians, but that's just nitpicking. I get that it's to send a message, but girl. Very interesting character. I hope in the rerun they restore the legendary 6-hour Vina Milskar Yuri. And finally, the story. Overall, very straightforward. Complicated by the fact that it's told to us in what essentially is Morgan's memoir for Siege's life up to this point. The story is a tragedy. Definitely one that is overall painted as a joyous victory, but one that very much cements that the down-to-earth story of the Victoria's crisis was the Victorians themselves. As such, the tragedy of Vina coming to power starts exactly where you think it would, the moment she left Londinium. While I wouldn't call it abandoning Victoria exactly, you can imagine how the gang felt at that moment. The world was collapsing around the Glasgow gang, the happiest days of their lives, living in Norport with the girls. Vina, Indra, Morgan, Dagda and Baird. Not Cato though, the lesbian polycule excludes such a creature. Life was going well. Drinking, keeping the peace, Dagda trying to aura form, yes Dagda, we do in fact see the fit. Everything went to hell in a handbasket though when the Dukes got involved. The Glasgow gang ended up destroying weapons a Duke was secretly bringing into Londinium through Norport, bringing much unneeded attention to Siege. Although a recent image of her had recently been acquired by the Dukes, so trouble was inevitable. As opposed to a recent image not being recently acquired by the Dukes. God, I have such a way with words. Faced with the reveal of her royal heritage to the Glasgow gang, Siege took Indra, Morgan and Dagda with her and fled Victoria to find help, promising to eventually come back. Although it wasn't the Siege that returned, but Vina Victoria, hero of the people. From the beginning of her road to ruler, Vina was already set to lose that which she sought to protect. But regardless, Victoria stands. Londinium once again returns to Aslan rule. Of course, it's not perfect. Milskar is extorting the poor families of military veterans, the Dukes are being the Dukes, cases of oripity are still on the rise, and relations with the Sarkaz are strained to say the least. The Glasgow gang is struggling to adapt to a life where beating their way out of a problem isn't the solution, although life would be a lot easier if it was. A Sarkaz born and bred in Victoria is punished in accordance with the new laws set in place by Parliament. He assaulted a shopkeeper to prevent word spreading that he was helping other Sarkaz leave the city. The main exodus of the Sarkaz, organized by Rhodes Island and Wizardel of all people, took the majority with them, but those who consider themselves Victorian remain, although considering the conditions, probably not for much longer. Vina, following the end of the war, also negotiated with the Dukes to mostly remain out of Londinium. Not fully, as technically Vina is in charge of the Victorian government, although that is essentially just limited to Londinium at this time. They mostly underestimate her, although that is a decision that most certainly will bite them in the ass. Godden is mostly neutral, Castor is of course plotting to gain more power, and the Earl of March wants to grow rich by having Columbia be the provider of aid to Londinium. Through her, of course. Vina, of course, isn't pleased with the situation, but isn't about to be pushed around. At least Rose Island is there for a bit. Although the Doctor personally leaves shortly after the war to follow Amiat to Casdell. During the rebuilding of Londinium, most don't have their needs met, and nowhere is this more obvious than with the supply of Originium suppressants. Citizens and veterans alike don't have enough to get by, which brings Bobbing to Londinium from Columbia. Not as part of some wicked scheme, but because he genuinely wants to help. This leads him into contact with Deanne, a retired infected soldier. Their relationship is something that naturally grows during this story, with Deanne taking him all over the place. In case I don't mention them for a few paragraphs, keep that in mind that they are doing stuff in the background. Morgan reminisces on how the workers of the city welcomed them back, with all the factories bellowing steam as the exemplars raced back to the city. Now, 2 months following their return, repair work is still underway. Not enough resources exist to make it faster, but they are doing the best they can with what they have. I know I said I mightn't mention them again, but it's important. Diane was one of the soldiers that broke rank with their dukes to aid the exemplars on their march back to Londinium. The shadow beneath the speaker, Milskar, continues her work of smuggling Sarkaz out of the city, while the claws of the Parliament circle above her. Most would like to see her gotten rid of, but Vina is of course hesitant. Milskar has done a lot for Londinium. Prior to Siege retaking the city, she would disable the Sarkaz witchcraft that had been woven into the walls of the city, saving it from being destroyed. She did this with a little help from this unnamed vampire. Yep, absolutely no idea who she is, probably won't ever be relevant again. Can you tell that the joke is about CN content? Is the joke funny because I explained it? Milskar would even provide Vina the outfit she wore during her reclamation of the city, the same armor she wears now as the speaker. Pretty interesting that she had all of Vina's sizes like that, but I won't comment further. She also provided a bit of blackmail for one of the dukes. Very cool, Milskar, you did nothing wrong. Then the wife of a soldier who died of oripity is found by the defense forces, alive, but missing a lot of blood. Vina wanted to give Milskar the benefit of the doubt, but Milskar intentionally forces her hand. She doesn't want Vina being perceived as weak or willing to let people escape justice. So, with a heavy heart, Vina orders the arrest of Milskar, alive or dead. All will stand equal before the law. Milskar claims that giving Vina this gift, of making people believe that she can provide them with safety, is her final gift. but we will see later that it is simply not true. The old soldiers are worried about the treatment of veterans. Very understandable. Rumors are spreading that the Exemplars are being disbanded, which puts a lot of people on edge. Katrin and Shearer are attempting to keep those around them in line. Both are suffering from a ripety following the crisis. Katrin is managing it reasonably well, while Shearer is suffering quite a lot. Becoming addicted to painkillers following getting infected, as supplies are thin, he is going through both a ripety and withdrawal symptoms. Vina, following receiving 2 letters from Shearer, ventures to the bar he's holding up in to check on him. Here, Vina gets confirmation that the Exemplars are still awaiting orders. Her own personal army if she chooses to keep it around. A very useful thing to have, but definitely a political roadblock. Yes, due to her popularity, she could very easily force the issue, but that is not the Victoria she wants to build. Although it wouldn't be announced just yet, this was the moment that led to Vina's decision to disband the Exemplars, maintaining their legendary status as liberators of Londinium. Shearer would also suffer a major Euripide attack around this time, and would end up collapsed in the street. Delphine appears before him though, reminding him of home. Delphine still has work to do in Londinium, but soon she would be returning home, and Shearer would be coming with her. A new Duke of Windermere is required after all. As mentioned previously, the workers of Londinium have been working overtime on repairs. Resource shortages remain a constant issue, with one worker going out of his way to tell Vina that maybe letting veterans die so the workers could have the medicine instead is a good idea. This ends with Vina beating him in the street. It's not political suicide when everyone loves you. Stainless does come to the man's aid before Vina beats him too much, but the seeds of doubt have been planted in Vina's mind following the encounter. Stainless is trying to keep the peace with the workers. Vina has been keeping the red tape from Parliament from affecting them too much. Supplies from the Dukes have been getting roadblocked by bandits, and it's obviously just a way of tightening the noose around Londinium. Katrin, meanwhile, has been working with the remnants of Reunion within Victoria, taking any and all suppressants they can smuggle into the city and giving them to the people most in need. Reunion is allowed to operate within Londinium so long as they don't cause any troubles. We do get confirmation that the Reunion higher-ups have moved on though, so no doubt we'll see them again in the future. Vina, meanwhile, tells Oren to fuck himself. Sorry, that's just a little tick I have whenever this man shows up. Vina politely declines an invitation to the Summit of Nations, handily sidestepping, spoiling people with a new drip during Guide Ahead. Very cool political maneuvering, Vina. The Glasgow gang attempt to cheer her up despite the amount of paperwork in her face, but it goes south when Norport is mentioned, which puts a damper on things. The gap between Vina and the Glasgow gang is widening, and it's not going to get any better with the next major decision she makes being what fully convinces the girls to return to Norport. Rumours of Vina being crowned king continue to circulate, so Vina decides to confront the rumours directly, officially announcing the end of the Exemplars before her broadcast is cut off. The Dukes have come to make their move on Vina. Once again, she finds herself facing off against Godding, Castor, and March. Before they can spring whatever they wanted on Vina though, an announcement ruins their flow. The crown has been stolen and delivered to Vina's office. Victoria craves the king. The crown will be a constant thorn in her side. Diane is the thief, by the way, in case you thought the Dukes were being sneaky. Vina returns the crown to the throne room, temporarily taking comfort in Gawain's presence before reality comes back to haunt her. Morgan came to ask Vina to be merciful to Diane, but the words never leave her lips. Vina will uphold the new laws of the land. It all changed the day they took down Nez Salam. The Victorians charged the Sorkas lines. The last Steam Knight crashed into the land to save Victoria. Diane, without a weapon, was handed the size of kings by siege. When Diane fell, another took up the blade. When they fell, another picked it up, and then another after them, all the way to Nez Salam himself. The workers unveiled a mighty crawler, the next generation of Victorian steam power, one to replace the fallen institution of Steam Knights. And with all their might combined, Nez Salam was struck down by the Victorians on the steps of the Palace of Westerlig. Vina alone entered, When she didn't come out, Stainless takes the crawler in after her, but eventually she returns, raising her hammer in victory. With Victoria saved, the last Steam Knight finally meets its end, Allerdale being the only one focusing on him when the moment of victory arrived. Diane, despite everything she did, the suffering she went through to save Victoria, it's irrelevant. The new laws must be upheld. Protests ignited over the verdict, but when Siege spoke to the Glasgow gang, she told them what she planned to tell the Dukes. Diane's name never came up. Morgan would tell the story of Siege to children following the liberation of Victoria, but the story always ended when she stepped out of the palace. The story of Vina is not one she wishes to tell, and all Vina can do is whisper an apology to Diane, alone in her office. Vina, even though she wants to, can't save Diane, but she visits her the day before her execution. She drinks with her and reveals to her what happened within the Palace of Kings. She saw her father upon the throne, the last remnants of the old Victoria, one that she takes her hammer to. Not a story one would like to hear on death's row, but one that isn't over yet. Clovissa, the unicorn, appears before her. One of the ageless, she has been haunting Victoria as a shadow for centuries. Just like the Black Snake, she wishes the best for her country. Over the centuries, she has ensured the interests of the Dukes, even going so far as to ensure the dragons couldn't oppose the Aslan. Offering Vina a gift, the crown, the speaker, or the leader of the Exemplars. Choose one and she would make it happen. Vina refuses. She has already chosen her path, not through some ancient immortal, but the people of Victoria themselves. A happy thought for one whose life ends tomorrow. Not that she heard it, cause she passed out from drinking too much, but Vina's heart was in the right place. And so, Vina's life with the Glasgow gang comes to an end, as Dagda, Morgan, and Indra return to Norport. She could ask them to stay. There is no doubt in my mind that they would have refused her, but that would deprive them of their home, what they fought for. Vina's home is there too, but she must make it a place worth living, not just for the Glasgow gang, but for all of Londinium. So, Vina lets them go. The Dukes think they can use the protests as a bargaining chip against Vina, but she is very much tired of their shit. So she takes Castor and Godding up in their offers of aid. She demands that the Dukes reopen supply lines immediately to deliver the goods to Londinium. Additionally, she begins the training of infected regiments of soldiers within Londinium. Due to the war with the Sorkas, exclusively infected troops were a reality everyone would be forced to reckon with. Castor is also forced into allowing Londinium to be the place foreign envoys come within Victoria, and the Earl of March is promptly ignored. Victoria won't rely on a Colombian front. She promises each of the Dukes present that if they were to try anything, Vina would ensure that the Dukes would burn alongside her. And so, following her meeting with the Dukes, Vina sits before the gathered crowd of Londinium. No, Diane won't receive a pardon, but Vina relaxes in the presence of her people. Despite the rough condition Victoria has found itself in, at its heart is a woman who truly wants the best for her people, despite everything. Better days are in Victoria's future. Parliament still says they shall search for a new king, although a nationwide referendum will decide if that person is placed on the throne. The crown might still be in Vina's future, but that will only happen should she choose to allow it. Vina has kept the wolves from her door for another day, but the Dukes will surely try something soon. Diane is alive, by the way, at least until Euripide gets her. Vina low-key staged the whole thing. Milskar smuggled the body out of the city using Bobbing, who takes her to Columbia to live out the rest of her days. Told you Milskar wasn't finished with Vina just yet. The Glasgow gang also return to their gym, where Cador has been holding down the fort. He leaves though. His time at Glasgow is over. The gang want to wait for Vina, but decide drinks waits for no one. Waking up with one hell of a hangover and the Speaker of Parliament in their humble gym. Despite what I said, Vina is still Vina, changed and burdened with responsibility, but when she can make time for her friends, she will. spending the whole day just hanging out. Horn is stuck doing the paperwork, but this ain't about her. Delphine heads back to her home, and the Glasgow gang remain in theirs. Only Vina, all by herself, makes the journey back to central Londinium. Alone physically, but with a home waiting for her should she need it. And to end the story of this event, an extract from Morgan's memoir dedicated to her old friend. Vina Victoria, I dreamt I was you. I dreamt of a time I was all old and withered, some afternoon, decades after I lost touch with my Glasgow friends. I walked into the tomb that Siege built for the gang. I cherish that unforgettable memory that is no longer mine. I cherish the tale that started in Norport. Vina, from the day you put on those clothes, I knew. In the end, you walk alone. You have no choice but to walk alone. I'm sorry there's no way for us to help you or to stay by your side. But I wanted to let you know we will always be here. The Glasgow gang will always be here. So yeah, this event actually ends on a really depressing note. The gang won, they got their happy ending, but even still, Vina must suffer. Not because anything is wrong, but because she now leads her people. She can't trust the Dukes to do it. Only time will tell if she and the Glasgow gang get a truly happy ending. I would certainly hope that the tomb Morgan dreams of is not the future that awaits Vina, but sometimes life can be cruel. I kinda wish more could be done by Vina to mess with the Dukes as well, but they are pretty solidly embedded into the Victorian system. Maybe in a few years Vina could get some hangings going, but the sad fact of life is that governments often keep around those that hurt them. I hope you all enjoyed the epilogue of the Victoria crisis as much as I did. We are getting a second one that's set between this and chapter 14 in a few months, which was certainly a decision of all time. But alas, this is the world we live in. Let me know your thoughts on this event down below. All that being said, many thanks to the members of the factory. You are the Vina to my Victoria, keeping this sinking ship going despite everything suggesting it should crash and burn. Making a joke while shouting out the channel members is certainly a decision. Regardless, y'all be good people, and I will see you in the next one. No, but seriously, I could fix the Earl of March. I can't change the British part, but trust me, I could fix her. On the other hand, the Duke of Castor could definitely fix me.